I'd like to welcome Jimmy Keaton, Director of Government Affairs with Kentucky American Water, to the podium to make some presenting sponsor remarks. Jimmy. Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Oh, that was a little weak. Help me now. Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Once again, it's a pleasure for Kentucky American Water to welcome all of you to today's Public Policy Luncheon. We extend special greetings to Secretary Chao. We thank you so much for your service to our great nation. Thank you so very much. Kentucky American Water is a proud supporter of this series and proud to be your regional water service provider, serving portions of 14 counties in Kentucky. We know just how important water is to our daily life. It's somehow involved in everything we do and everything we use. When you need it, you expect it to be there, and you expect it to be clean and safe. Every day I work with dedicated professionals, some who are seated with me up front. They're all focused on the same goal, that is providing our customers with clean, safe, reliable, and affordable water service. So on behalf of the 140 employees of Kentucky American Water, headquartered here in Lexington, we appreciate the opportunity to serve as sponsor, and we hope you enjoy the program. Thank you.
One other person I'd like to recognize, Mary Lynn Capilouto, thank you very much for being with us today. We've appreciated your leadership in many ways. Thank you. We're honored to have the U.S. Department of Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao with us here today. This is not her first cabinet position. She served as the U.S. Secretary of Labor from 2001 to January of 2009, and is the first Asian American woman to be appointed to the President's Cabinet in American history. Secretary Chao comes to the U.S. Department of Transportation with extensive experience in the transportation sector. She began her executive career in public service, working on transportation and trade issues at the White House. She then served as Deputy Maritime Administrator, Chairman of the Federal Maritime Commission, and Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation. Secretary Chao understands the critical role of the Department in ensuring the safety of our country's transportation systems. She's also keenly aware of the key role infrastructure plays in our nation's economic competitiveness and in strengthening economic growth in both the urban and rural areas of our country. Secretary Chao has a distinguished career in the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, an immigrant who arrived in America at the age of 8, speaking no English. She received her citizenship at the age of 19. Prior to the Department of Labor, Secretary Chao was President and Chief Executive Officer of the United Way of America. Secretary Chao also served as Director of the Peace Corps, where she established the first programs in the Baltic nations and the newly independent states of the former Soviet Union. Secretary Chao earned her MBA from the Harvard Business School and an economics degree from Mount Holyoke College. Honoring her for her extensive record of accomplishments in public service, she's the recipient of, get this number, 37 honorary doctorate degrees. I think she's touched a lot of people in her lifetime. She's a resident of Jefferson County and a fellow Kentuckian. We are honored to have Secretary Chao with us today, and we look forward to her remarks. Please join me in welcoming Secretary Elaine Chao.
Thank you so much, Bob, for that very nice introduction, and I'm so sorry you had to go through all of that. This is what happens when you get older and the resume gets longer and longer. But I'm so pleased to be back home, and especially here in Lexington. This is a place that I come very often on many other occasions, so it's great to be, number one, back home, and number two, to be here. I also know that there's been there's been a terrific conference here and on thoroughbreds, and it's been a great success. And I brought a number of people from transportation. So I've had the great pleasure of introducing them to our Commonwealth. And I tell them all these wonderful things, and as we came into Lexington, I showed them pointed out the white fences, sometimes black fences, and then of course the big sign that says this is the horse capital of the world. And I say, you want thoroughbreds, you come to Lexington, Kentucky. And then also I had the good fortune of sitting next to this man, Mr. Luther Deaton, who we all know. And I asked Luther whether I can just have a bite of his ham. But then on second thought, I said to myself, I couldn't even afford a bite. I'm so glad also that Congressman Andy Barr is here, because earlier today, we both participated in a roundtable about on the Town Branch Commons, the corridor project, and also he and I talked about the other transportation needs in his district. And I want you to know that you have an incredible advocate in Congressman Barr. We hear from him all the time. He and his staff and us are very close because we hear from them all the time. But that's great for you, because what happens is we need advocates to let us know what a particular project is all about, the significance of it, the implications, how it plays into the larger overall transportation needs of the region. And Congressman Barr and his outstanding staff are so valuable in working with the U.S. Department of Transportation to help us understand the significance and the impact of so many infrastructure projects in this region so that we can make better decisions about infrastructure projects that are needed. So once again, Congressman Barr, I want to tell you in your home turf and also to your staff who work so hard that we really appreciate the opportunities of working with you. So, Congressman Barr. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today. I've been actually making a little tour in the Commonwealth. So yesterday I was in Paducah, and we established the first gateway, maritime gateway office in Paducah, because Paducah now is incredibly valuable to our Commonwealth in terms of interstate inland waterways commerce. Paducah, you have your niche, Paducah has their niche. And so we were so pleased to be able to establish this maritime gateway office that will help to facilitate, coordinate, and promote inland waterways traffic. Then we also gave a grant for a marine highway project, and then also a small shipyard project. So what this all emphasizes is that under this administration, rural America will not be forgotten. Rural America will have the attention and the resources that it needs. And so today, I'd like to share some thoughts about how the administration and the department are putting powerful ideas into practice to strengthen and improve America's transportation system. And in terms of your city that you care so much about and that I love as well, I am so pleased to report to you that LexTran will be receiving $2.3 million through the U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Transit Administration program of low or no emission grants. This $2.3 million will be used to purchase electric buses and charging stations, which will service the city of Lexington and also Fayette County. I try not to come empty-handed. But these new all-electric buses will replace older diesel buses that have exceeded their useful life. And this will improve efficiency, help reduce emissions for the benefit of all the residents in this region. So as you can imagine, being a Kentuckian, and a proud one at that, it is a real special privilege and pleasure for me to announce such projects that benefit Kentuckians and to be here to do so in person. Because improvements in our transportation infrastructure and networks can make a profound difference in terms of the quality of life and the economic growth that will benefit Kentuckians today and also generations to come. So some may ask, well, what are your priorities at the Department of Transportation? I have three major ones. Number one is safety must always be number one. Number two, we need to address the needs of our country's infrastructure to increase the competitiveness and the productivity of the economy, and also to improve the quality of life for our residents. And then thirdly, there's so much happening with new technologies these days. The department is a regulator. So we have to engage with new technologies to address legitimate public concerns about safety, privacy, and security without hampering innovation, which is such a huge part of our predominance overseas. Our tradition as innovators, as creators, is unsurpassed in the world. So we want to protect the public, but not hamper innovation. And to make significant gains in all these arenas, in all 50 states, the Department of Transportation is implementing the administration's principles. Number one, we want to partner with local and state governments. We want to empower decision-making by state and local governments because we trust you. We believe that you know best what needs to happen in your community. Number two, we like to not discriminate against the private sector. There are many private sector pension funds, endowment funds that would like to engage in public infrastructure, invest in public infrastructure. Well, in many states, the private sector is restricted in its ability to invest in public infrastructure. And so we would like to eliminate that barrier of discriminating against the private sector. Three, we like to streamline project delivery. And then I need not say more. And four, again, is to address the needs of rural America, which we believe has been overlooked for too long. So the department is also now a leader in addressing overly burdensome regulations. Last year, this administration directed the department, all the departments, to eliminate 2 unnecessary and overly burdensome regulations for every new one proposed. And at the department, we're pleased to say that we are exceeding that requirement by a considerable amount without compromising the environment nor safety. And that's not the goal. But there are ways in which we can improve government regulations. How many of you have gone through either one government agency versus another, where there are so many regulations that impede one another, that contradict one another, and that makes it very, very difficult for you to provide the service that you want? So what we're talking about are streamlining regulations so that, as an example, reports that need to be filed don't have to be done sequentially. Why don't we allow different agencies to conduct different reports at the same time? Or at the Department of Transportation, allow sister agencies to share information. Right now, they can't. So we stretch out the regulatory permitting process because we're making every single step occur sequentially. So what we're talking about are common sense steps. But how do we let, why don't we let agencies to do things like simultaneously at the same time? or to allow agencies and offices to share each other's information rather than to have to conduct their own. That's what we're talking about. Commonsensical regulations and reforms like that. So in the previous 10 years, in the previous administration, the regulatory burden from the Department of Transportation alone, just one cabinet in this vast executive branch, was $3.2 billion annually. Now the department is on track to save over $1 billion in fiscal year 2018 while advancing safety and innovation. And that is one reason why the economy is going so strong, where last month the unemployment rate was 3.9% nationally, the lowest it's been in 37 years. And the GDP growth for the second quarter was 4.1%. Some said that it couldn't ever happen again, but it did. And of course, 3.7 million net new jobs have been created since the start of 2017. So what we're talking about is smaller governments, free markets, and empowering state and local governments and trusting them are paying dividends in innovation as well. As I've just mentioned, our country is witnessing significant new developments in transportation. We're seeing automated vehicles, self-driving cars basically, and unmanned aircraft systems or drones. And the department has launched programs that allow private sector firms and local communities to partner on safety testing and refining these technologies. So last September, we published guidelines for the safe testing and integration of automated driving systems. That's part of what's needed for self-driving cars. And to keep pace with innovation, because it's going so rapidly, work is already starting on a multimodal version. It's called the Vision for Safety, AV 3.0. These new guidelines will address barriers to the safe integration of automotive technology for motor carriers, transit, trucks, and infrastructure and other modes in addition to cars. And to ensure that the new guidelines include diverse viewpoints, we actually held numerous nationwide AV policy listening summits. The last one occurred at the department on March 1st, and we invited stakeholders from all around the country to participate. So the administration's autonomous vehicles policy is going to be number one, tech neutral. We do not presume that Washington has all the brains or that we would know which technology is the best. We will not be command and control. We will not be top-down because we believe in the innate wisdom of local communities and states and also the private sector and nonprofits also who are working in this arena. Regulations will be as performance-based and non-prescriptive as possible. And the department will work with state and local governments and other entities to avoid a patchwork of rules that could inhibit innovation and make it difficult for autonomous vehicles to cross state lines. The department will provide stakeholders with guidance, best practices, pilot programs, and other assistance to facilitate integration of AV technologies into the transportation system. And currently, there's still a great deal of anxiety. If you say to people, do you want to get into a driverless car? Like 74% of Americans would say no. If you say, would you like to go into a self-driving car? The anxiety drops a little bit to about 71%. 71% of Americans still say they don't want to get into a self-driving car either. So I always challenge Silicon Valley and the automobile industry. I say, you've got, if you want to have greater acceptance of this technology, it's your responsibility to help the rest of us feel more comfortable. But as regulators, we need to address legitimate public concerns about safety, security, and privacy. And then also, the department recognizes that autonomous vehicles will need to have the capability to operate side by side with traditional vehicles. So the transition period will be very important. And this is in both urban and rural areas. And we also need to be talking about innovation in the skies. Our country is witnessing the most significant new development in aviation since the beginning of the jet age, and that's the emergence of unmanned aircraft systems, or drones. There are more than 1.1 million registered drones in the United States already. That was as of February 10th of this year. And there are now about 100,000 certified drone operators, a job category that didn't even exist 2 years ago. Now, drones have proven to be very valuable. For example, in 2017, after the hurricanes in Louisiana, Texas, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, drones demonstrated incredible utility in search and rescue missions and in safely and quickly conducting surveys of damaged buildings and infrastructure so that assessment and rebuilding can begin. And so it's vital that we ensure the safe deployment of this technology because it is coming. And we need to do so, again, in a responsible way. So to encourage the safe integration of drones into our national airspace, the administration has a new initiative through the department. It's called the Unmanned Aircraft Systems Integration Pilot Program. It was announced last October. And this pilot program is going to allow the private sector and local communities to partner to test the safe operation of drones in currently prohibited conditions, which means that we're going to have test programs that will allow drones to fly over the heads of people, to fly at night, and also to fly outside the range of vision. And so on May 9th of this year, I announced 10 selections for this pilot program. And we'll see, and we'll be able to get very valuable information about how do we deal with drones in the national airspace. And then the Department of Transportation also handles another part that you may not know about. We actually oversee commercial space flights. So we actually reach into outer space. 6 years ago, the United States was third behind Russia and China in rocket launches. Today, we are number one. The department is committed to building on this momentum by streamlining and updating our launch and re-entry licensing criteria in accordance with the President's directive on space. So that's going to give commercial space operators the approvals that they need more quickly and help to make the United States an even more attractive place for commercial space enterprises. Think about that. A recent study concluded that the commercial space industry will triple in 7 years to $27 billion annually. And if America wins a significant market share of this new frontier in private sector innovation, it could drive economic growth, technological innovation, and job creation for all Americans. So as you can see, there is so much going on in the field of transportation. New technologies are evolving, which hold great promise for improving safety, travel, and transport all across the country. And meanwhile, we also remain very focused on the need to address existing infrastructure. Under the omnibus, which just passed on March 23rd, $10 billion in additional monies have been given to the Department of Transportation as a down payment for President Trump's infrastructure proposal on top of the $78 billion, which we already have. So we are very focused on ensuring that the quality of life is good for the residents of this country, that productivity is high, commerce is strong, because that is the best way to increase the standard of living and opportunities for all the people who live within America. And on that, I want to thank you so much for being such great leaders of a great city. I love Kentucky. As some of you know, I wasn't born here, but I got here as quickly as I could. And I had to marry a Kentuckian to get here. Leader McConnell says hi, but I'm so proud of all of you because you are leaders of a great city, and you are making life better every single day for those who live here. Thank you so much.